My intention actually with this tutorial on the Sony Alpha 290 is to make a tutorial that is better than the menu or the manual that you receive when you buy the camera. Often you want to just do photographing and learn by your mistakes and get on with it. But later on, it might be a very good idea to pick up the manual and read some stuff about photographing, and then you will see that this video is probably a bit too generalizing. But I think it's a great first step for the one that has bought a camera and want to do some more advanced stuff than just use the auto mode on the camera. So what you do here is turn your camera on. You can do that and put the dial at M, the M mode, and that's the wheel on the left of the camera with different icons on. So you have the M for manual exposure. And then you press the display button that is to the right of your camera display. And you press it until your camera display shows the menu that I have to the left. I think it contains the most information. It's the most interesting to show you newbies out there. The Sony Alpha 290's display is divided into different sections, and the orange line here divides this in an upper and a lower part. The lower part is then divided into three parts by the two gray lines you can see here. Okay, how do you manipulate the different settings in the menu here? The three most important settings are, of course, the exposure, the aperture, and the ISO settings here. And the exposure you actually manipulate with the little scroll wheel that you have on the handle beneath the on-off switch of the camera. You can turn it left, you can turn it right, and it will increase or decrease the exposure time of the final photograph. You also have the aperture setting, and this is a bit more tricky, and probably the major point why I did this tutorial, and that's the bottom on the top of the camera, which is like black and white and has a plus and a minus sign on it. It also have a blue magnifying glass besides it, and if you hold that button down and do the same with the scroll button, you can actually change the aperture setting as well here. And don't be disappointed here if you cannot reach the 3.6 for all settings of the camera, because they sort of hang together with the other settings, how low you can go with the aperture settings. You might have 3.6 or something on your lens, but you might not reach that all the time. It depends on the exposure time and so. So you can manipulate that. And then you have the ISO setting, which you reach on the ISO button, which is to the right on your display. It is that round button which is divided into like 4 different parts with the ISO printed on it. Push the ISO part and you will be able to set the ISO from 100 to 3200 for the highest light sensibility. These different parts that the display is divided into are actually interesting to sort of get a hang about. In the lower part here, you have actually stuff that are not so easily manipulated. You have to go into the menus or stuff like that. You have the battery indicator. It shows you how much battery you have left. If you want this to increase, of course, you have to charge your batteries. You might have a cheap battery from Amazon or something like that, and if you have that, you might not even be able to trust this display. You have power, but you cannot see how much you have. But with the original Sony Alpha battery, it will show you here how much power you have left in your battery. If you are like me up in the cold Sweden, where it's very dark and cold, the battery runs out very fast. So it can be a good idea to have like a spare battery. Then you see which sort of format you are photographing in. And this part you can change by going into the menu, which you do on the left upper part of your camera. You have a menu button. You push that menu button and you can scroll between the different menus there. And but the first menu is actually where you can set the quality of your image, and you can choose RAW or JPEG or a combination, which I have. And you cannot in general say if you're a beginner photographer that RAW is particularly much better than JPEG. But it is actually good when you do image manipulation. You can do stuff with much better quality. Then you sort of really see the sort of benefits with shooting in RAW instead of JPEG. But otherwise, I can hardly see the difference actually. So you can shoot the JPEG because RAW takes up much more memory space. An image is probably 4 times bigger or something like that in RAW. And you can see the size of the image. If you're shooting in JPEG, you can choose between, I think it's 3 different settings of size. But with RAW and JPEG, you also automatically get the largest sizes of the images. Then you see which kind of memory card that is active on your camera, because the Sony Alpha 290 actually have the opportunity to switch between 2 different kinds of memory cards. So here you can see that I have the MS storage card active. And then to the right here we can see how much space we have left on the card. It approximately is 122 pictures in a raw JPEG format, and I have like a 4 gigabyte memory card in my camera, so it's roughly somewhere around that that you can take 130 pictures or something like that in raw plus JPEG. So the lower part here is not, it's like the major settings. You have what kind of quality you're photographing in here, and you have the battery indicator. Everybody understands that. And you have which kind of card that is chosen here, and how many pictures you have left on your card. Quite easy. This part here will not probably look exactly the same as it does for me. I have chosen to put the flash out, and then when you do this flash indicator here will actually disappear, and you will have this M&M part, and you will have this triangle in upper triangular mode. And this will show you how over or underexposed the picture is. You can take a picture, and then you see on this one if the camera is sort of underexposing or overexposing. And you can, if you are overexposing, then you can increase the amount of aperture or decrease the exposure time, and vice versa. If you have underexposed your picture here, you can just decrease the aperture or increase the exposure time, and also the ISO value, of course, which we already covered. But it doesn't matter what you do here, you still get 2 dark pictures. Then you might have to turn on your flash, and the flash indicator here shows that I have turned off my flash. But if you want to turn it on, you go into the flash button. You have it to the right where the ISO button is. It's just above it to the right. You have a flash button. You push that, and you can set the flash on or off. You have some other settings as well for the flash, actually, but these are the most important ones. Then to the left of the flash button, or to the upper left from the ISO button on the camera, you have an indicator for if you want to take single shots or if you want to take serial shots when you do photographing. You have some others, I think, possibilities there as well, but these are the most important. So these are the flash indicating thing, and the single shot stuff, and the ISO setting you all reach in the round bottom to the right of your display. So you probably covered that quite well now. Well, now we have the FN button, or the menu that you can reach with the FN button, and that is the lower middle part here. These 6 settings are actually reached by the FN button, and the FN button is between the plus and minus button, which we talked about earlier. when you changed your aperture settings and the ISO button. Between there you have the little F and N button, and it's a menu button. You get into 6 different settings, and I have it set this way that I have the autofocus mode on the single shot, and I have the autofocus area settings at spot, which this icon should indicate, and then I have the metering mode center weighted. You also have like creative style options there. You can set the camera to take black and white pictures, or you can take sepia pictures and stuff like that. But mostly you do this in a picture image manipulating program like GIMP or something. You can do black and whites there, so then you don't have to do it directly into camera, because if you do, you don't be able to have a color picture if you shot it in black and white in the camera. But you can also always take a color picture and manipulate it to black and white in a Photoshop or GIMP or something like that. Then you have the white balance, and I have it to auto white balance, and that's because light is in different colors, and your eye might not pick up on that, but if you take a picture, you might see that it's sort of yellowish or bluish in its temperature, and white should be white and not sort of yellow or blue, and that you can manipulate in your camera. Let's say tungsten lighting, or fluorescent light, or sunlight, or cloudy sunlight. They all differ some in color temperature, but probably better to shoot in RAW and change the white balance settings in the RAW converter instead. That is the one of the major reasons why you shoot in RAW. Not like the picture quality in itself, but you have like the possibility to change the white balance, white stuff become white afterward. And then you have also the dynamic range, which I have only set to standard mode here. So that's everything you can say about this Sony Alpha 290 manual exposure menu, which can seem a bit frightening if you're a complete newbie to photographing. Now you should have the like basic stuff clear to you, and then it's just out taking pictures and learning by your mistakes. And then later on, when you have some experience, read a manual. Of course, it's quite good manual, the one I got with my camera, and you can read some photographing book as well to get more hang of it. But I think that the ISO, the aperture setting, and the exposure setting is the thing you have to sort of control and be able to manipulate when you are being creative with your manual exposure thing. And it's good to have some understanding about the other icons here, what they stand for, and especially that this middle range is actually the FN button. The lower part here is sort of menu settings here, and a battery indicator, and much picture there left, and a memory card that you're choosing, and that these 3 here you can reach by this left bottom that is sort of round, and that you have like a metering here that shows you if the picture was under or overexposed, and the camera's ID if it was under and overexposed. You might want your pictures to be overexposed or underexposed, but what the sort of camera think would it be right or wrong here. So that's all, people. That's all. Good luck. Out and take pictures. Bye.